Could it be that everything you've been told about productivity is wrong? Because despite all the books you've read and the tips you've heard, how much time do you actually use in the most efficient way? And on a deeper level, how much of that time that you're working and grinding you even enjoy, and how often you beat yourself up for wasting your time or missing your goals? Like, clearly there must be something wrong with all those myths, bad advice and misconceptions surrounding productivity. It simply makes it very hard for you to make the most of your time. So in this video we'll go over the 4 main guidelines from books such as Feel Good Productivity and Essentialism, from people like James Clear and Ryan Doris, as well as from my own experience on how to actually get more stuff done while making the process more easy, more fun and more satisfying. Now, the first lie you've been told is that you're not getting stuff done or procrastinating because you lack the motivation and discipline. But just imagine you'd be the participant in Mr. Beast's recent video and would spend 7 days in solitary confinement. Probably after only a few hours you would do anything to keep your mind engaged, even if it would look a little bit crazy to the people observing you. And now imagine on the 3rd day of your challenge, when you're completely bored and you don't know what else to do, we would place a PC and something to work into that room. Like, how excited and how easy would it be for you to study, even if you were completely unmotivated a few days earlier? However, if we compare this to our own typical work environment, we make it really hard for ourselves to stay productive. Like, sure, we're not that bad, but still, sometimes our phone is around, then we have all these high dopamine activities sprinkled throughout the day. And yeah, it does sound a bit like the typical advice to simply stop wasting your time on your phone. But not really, because instead of seeing it from a time-wasting perspective, and instead of doubting your motivation, all it means that in case you're struggling with procrastination, you probably make it a bit too hard for you to stay productive and get started. Again, think how easy it would be for you to work or study if you'd be trapped in a white room for 7 days. So the first guideline or question to ask yourself is, how can I make it more easy to stay productive? For instance, right now I'm in Costa Rica traveling, and it's very hot from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m, which makes it impossible to go out. So in those periods, it's so easy for me to work inside a cold room because, yeah, what should I do outside? And maybe this also means to really restrict yourself from all bad sources of dopamine while still allowing activities like going out with friends or doing sports or going to the cinema, which is not as high in dopamine and doesn't really make it as hard to get working. However, even though making it easier can help us to get started, it doesn't really ensure that we keep staying productive. And instead of again approaching this with willpower and grit and discipline, there again is a better way to stay productive, which is an insight that especially comes from the book Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal. If you're similar to me, as a teenager you probably were pretty drawn to video games and other competitive fields, such as playing sports or trying to get better at something. Where you probably also never had an issue with procrastination, but more into the other direction, where you played more video games or more sports than was good for you. Nevertheless, what most people tell you when work gets hard or when it's not enjoyable is to not leverage this fact and try to make the work more fun, but to simply push through the discomfort and approach the issue with more discipline, more grit and more hard work. The problem though, and as mentioned in Ali's recent book, study after study found out that this approach doesn't really work, because not the people that push through the issue with discipline, but those that try to make their work more fun, were able to get more done, perform better, and also were happier in the process. So the second guideline or question to ask yourself is, how can I make this so fun I cannot help myself but to keep going? So for instance, for me, I realized that I don't really enjoy scripting my videos as much. So for this video I scripted parts of it, had an outline, and then focused more on making this video as valuable as possible, which made it also more fun. Or something else that I do, that I often end my workday on a high, where I'm motivated, where I'm inspired, where I could work more, but I don't, just to make it more fun, which also makes it easier to come back the next day. Nevertheless, sometimes we have to do tasks that are not fun, and maybe they're not easy as well. And even though grit and willpower does have its place, which we'll talk about later, a better strategy still is to fall back to guideline number 3. So I already mentioned this in the last video, but there was a study where they let 2 mice fight against each other to see how winning affects your performance. So they gave mouse B a drug, which made it almost certain to lose against mouse A, which is exactly what happened when they let the 2 mice fight against each other. However, very interesting, when they let the mice fight again, meaning mouse B was not drugged, it was a fair fight, the mouse that won the first round, mouse A, was still way more likely to win, simply because it was on a spiral towards winning, which in this study was called the winner effect. And very interesting, in Ali's book, he mentioned a study where they found out that those people that beat themselves up most for when they procrastinate are also the people that are more likely to procrastinate. And those people that forgive themselves for procrastination are the ones that go back on track and get the most stuff done. And that's why the third question to ask yourself is, how can I make this so rewarding that I stay on an upward spiral and can't get enough of this? And again, this is a question to constantly ask yourself. But for some inspiration, what I do is that at the end of the day, I count my wins. I have a pre-game, post-game routine where I listen to the same song when I start working, when I end working. And then I also track my progress, not on how much I get done, but how much time I'm investing, which really helps me to lower the stakes of beating myself up at the end of the day, and also makes it much easier to get started again, because there's not this barrier, oh, I gotta get this and this and this and this done. I just know, okay, I wanna get 6 sessions of 30 minutes done, and if I do that, that's okay. But even though making your work more easy, more fun, and more rewarding can already help you to be way more productive and enjoy the process way more, we still have to address the one thing, which is the most common source of procrastination. So last year I filmed a video where I spent 1 week in isolation in a little house in the woods because I was pretty overwhelmed, lost, and uncertain about life. And this was also a period where I really struggled with getting anything done. And if you think about your own life, the times when you were uncertain or lost about life were also typically the times when you procrastinated the most or got the least amount of stuff done. And sure, there are a couple of things that can help. You can journal, reflect on your position in life, or you can follow the tip of Ryan Doris, and even if you're uncertain, only focus on what you're going to be doing in the next 30 minutes and stick to that instead of multitasking. But you know, the main insight and the biggest thing that you've been told wrong about productivity is that when you are unclear, when work gets hard, when it's not fun, and when it's not satisfying, it can be very hard for you to be productive. And instead of beating yourself up about the procrastination, which as you learned doesn't even help at all, is to realize that your current state might be tough, and that even if you try your best, that those 4 guidelines are simply not met. Which means you can approach it with more acceptance, more kindness, and more compassion. And even when it's the time that you need to work hard or you want to work hard, that you at least celebrate yourself for the progress instead of beating yourself up for it. I really hope this was valuable, and if you also want to make the most of your time in the rest of the day, meaning not when you're working, you can watch this video next, where I talk about the 5 main habits that most changed my life and put me on a spiral towards doing the things that matter. Thank you for watching.